Hi everyone, it's Ali. Today I'm going to show you how to make this white on craft card using the Beautiful Day stamp set. So I'm just starting with a piece of vellum here, and I'm going to stamp the outline and flower and leaves from the Beautiful Day stamp set from Altenew onto the vellum, and then I'm going to emboss it in white embossing powder. So I'm just getting out those stamps that I need there, using my MISTI to pick them up. And I'm just going to go over that vellum with a powder tool just to make sure the embossing powder doesn't stick to the areas I don't want it to. And I'm just using my Versamark ink pad there to ink up the stamps, stamp them onto the vellum. Sometimes I use my Versamark ink pad, sometimes I use my white Hero Arts ink pad. Today I just grabbed the Versamark pad, and then I've got white embossing powder there. I'm just covering those images with that. And then I'm going to heat that with my heat tool, and I had watched a video I think a while ago about heating the underneath of the vellum, and I think this is meant to help with the warping of the vellum so that it doesn't buckle too much, and it did actually work quite well. And I made sure I heated my heat gun really well first as well with that. So the vellum did bend slightly, but it didn't really warp a lot, so I was really quite happy with that. And I ended up stamping another flower and embossing that too, because I originally thought I was going to use 2 flowers on this card. And now I'm just using a white watercolour pencil. It's actually a Derwent pencil, and I'm just going in the darkest sections of the petals there, and I'm just feathering the white pencil out just to give it a bit of definition under there, like a shadow under the petals. I'm just feathering it out there from the centre outwards. I'm not covering the whole petal, I'm just covering the little bit that looks like it's in the shade or in the shadow. And then I go ahead and do the same thing with that little flower bunch, and also with the leaves and the other flower. Now I'm going to cut that out. I've got the dies that go with it set, so I'm going to run that through my Big Shot and cut all those pieces out really quickly off screen. And I decided I wanted a little bit more definition to the white in that flower, so I grabbed my gel pen, my white gel pen, and just use that over the top of the pencil just to flick out little flicks as well, just to give it a little bit more darkness with that colour, that white colour. I just did the same thing with the leaf and the other little flower as well. And I've just popped in a close-up photo, and you can see how I've done the little flicking there on the vellum. And then I cut out a frame using my dynamic stitched rectangles dies, and I'm just working out now where I'd like my flowers to go and my leaves to go. And then I'm just going to adhere that rectangle on with a bit of 3D foam. Just press that down, and then I'm going to decide where all of my flowers are going to go. Just using a rollable sort of glue there, just to stick on the bottom of that little bunch of flowers there, or the buds. And when you're sticking on vellum, I try to put the adhesive or the glue behind where the embossing powder is, or where the darkest part is, so that you can't actually see it through the vellum. And particularly with the flower, I've just put the 3D foam, I've just sort of concentrated that foam around the centre of the flower, so when I turn it over you can't really notice that the 3D foam is there. And a little bit more just to secure that on, and I've sort of curled it around so that it goes around with the centre of that flower. Where the stamen is in the middle of that flower is where I've sort of stuck the 3D foam. And then just adhere that on to the front of the card. And there was just some little bits sitting up a little too much, so I just used my multi-medium matte glue and precision tip, and just again put the glue on where the embossing powder is on the front, and I just use my acrylic block there to hold it down, to weight it down a little bit so that it would stick down. And then I decided that, yeah, I still need to stick a little bit more down, so I again just glued a little bit more down there. And then I'm going to do my sentiment, which is Wish You a Beautiful Day, sentiment from that Altenew set. And I'm going to stamp that again on Versamark ink on black card and emboss it in white embossing powder. I've just covered it with my powder tool again so that I didn't get in too many bits of embossing powder on the black card, and then stamped it up with a Versamark ink. And then just the white embossing powder over that. And it did actually have quite a bit of embossing powder sticking to the edges and a little bit of extra flecks here and there, so I just used a fine paintbrush just to brush off the extra bits of embossing powder. And this heat set with my heat tool. And once that was done, I use my scalpel to usually cut out my sentiments. I just like to get it exact, and I find it's quite hard to cut small pieces in my cutter, so I usually use my scalpel and things like that to cut out my sentiments, just deciding where I want it to go on the card. And I'm just going to cut it down with my scissors to a little banner end as well. And then actually I decided that the background of my card was a little bit blank and I needed something, and I decided I wanted to do some white flecks of paint on the front of it, and of course everything had been stuck down, so I had to go and mask everything off. And I'm just using a bit of gesso there and putting a bit on my acrylic block with a bit of water and then flicking it onto my card. And I don't know about you, but when I do this, it seems to go everywhere but on the front of the card, and so it took me quite a while to get it to go where I wanted it and flick enough spots on the front of that card. And then I just remove my masks really carefully. And then stick on my sentiment with a bit of 3D foam. And that's it for the card. And I did end up putting a couple of those little droplets from Pretty Pink Posh on the card after I had finished videoing. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for visiting my channel, and really love all the comments. Thanks so much for the thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.